Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I want to talk to you guys about legendaries for Warlocks in Shadowlands. Now, we have about, I guess about 18, it's really 18 days, and we have like 18 days until Shadowlands launches, which is actually a lot less than I thought it was. Either way, we have raid testing tomorrow of Mythic Castle Nathria, and over the last few weeks, I've been getting a lot of questions about, hey, what legendaries are good, what are bad, what would you start with, what's your plan for Shadowlands? So I will say right now that tuning is still happening. So this could all mean nothing an hour from now if Blizzard adjusts things. So I would keep in mind this can all change. But at this current point in time, I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on Affliction, Destro, Demo Legendaries, which are good, which are bad, which I would maybe look at crafting first, and my just general, I guess, thought process of what to craft first, heading into Heroic and then Mythic Nathria. I guess Mythic Plus is also a thing. Any weak ORS profiles or add-ons you see here, you can get for free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions, grab them, feel free to do so. So like I said, boys, just really, I want to emphasize this. Keep in mind that this can all change. I'm not a huge fan of tier lists. I'm not a huge fan of ranking things 1 through 4, best to worst on beta, because it's beta for a reason. However, we're getting close, and I think it's about time to start making these videos. So if you guys are interested in Destro, Demo, or AF spec guides, leveling guides, those things, I'm going to have those rolling out, as well as a lot of changes and improvements to the channel over the next few weeks. So be sure to swing by if you want to check those out. So I figured before we get into Destro, we should actually talk a little bit about how you craft legendaries and what ranks, because that has changed in the last week or so. Previously, you were able to craft, I believe, 4 rank 1 legendaries the week Mythic Nathria opened. However, with, I guess, a week ago or so, two builds ago on beta, they changed this. So you need 1250 soul ash to craft a rank 1 legendary. Now you can acquire 600 per, I guess, Torghast wing clear. However, per week, 2 wings are available. So technically you have a total of 1200 soul ash coming in per week, which means that, looking at the calendar here, launches here, you have 1 week, 2 weeks. Nathria opens here. So this is Heroic Nathria. So you have 2400. This day, if you run Torghast, both wings, before Castle Nathria Heroic opens, you can have technically 3600 soul ash ready to craft. Here is where Mythic Castle Nathria opens. So if you run Torghast before Mythic opens, or before, I guess, that reset before you go into the raid, you will have 4800 soul ash available if you min-max every single, I guess, resource you have available to you. So this means that if you're looking at Mythic as your target date for having your legendaries ready to go, you can essentially make a rank 3 legendary and, well, a rank 1 legendary. To the same extent, you can make 2 rank 2 legendaries for 4000 soul ash, rank 3 and rank 1 being 450. Or you can make 3 rank 1 legendaries and be, I don't know, a few hundred short of making a 4th. Now, the thing here is that you can upgrade your legendaries, like level-wise. You basically bring, from what I understand, that one to the crafter with a higher level, I guess a higher eye level helm or pair of shoulders, bracers, whatever, and give the extra soul ash, and it will upgrade to that. So depending on what you're looking at progression-wise, if you need 1 legendary, 2, 3, 4, however you're planning, I guess whatever you see your guild killing boss-wise, if you maybe you need like Wilfred's comparatively to Triple Conflag, or, you know, Agony Shard Gen, it's important to try and, like, I guess, pace that out, sort of just draw that out. Because if you need 3 technically for the first X bosses you think you're going to kill, you can make 3 rank 1s the week Mythic opens. Or if you think, all right, I can use a rank 3 on this boss, which is going to be pretty challenging, the extra eye levels will help, you can make one later for later on down the line that week and make like a rank 1 for the first few. So it depends. Now, the effects do not scale with eye level here. You're gonna get the same 25% bonus to Drain Soul on Malefic Wrath, stacking 3 times at rank 1 and rank 4. The difference is eye level. And in the end, eye level is more intellect, more secondary stats, so it will make a bit of a difference. I'm going to talk about my plan for legendary crafting a bit later on in the video, but like I said, I wanted to lay this out for you guys and just give you a general idea of what's going on. So without, I guess, all that being said, now let's get into some Destro legendary talk. So finally, kicking things off with Destruction, I want to say number 1 here that Cinders of Azek here, this drops from Sludge Fist in Castle Nathria. So if you're looking at crafting this for Destro, you're not really going to be able to do it until Nathria opens and you kill Sludge Fist, whenever that is. To the same extent, Relic of Demonic Synergy drops from Stone Legion Generals in Nathria. All the sources were listed on here. I don't know why they're gone at this point. It's beta. I don't know. I'll try and find a list of legendary sources where they drop from and put it in the video description. So if you're interested in that, look down there if I can find anything. Regardless, though, so looking at Destro, there are a handful of options here that you can craft. There are some more universal ones like Wilfred's, and there are some strong ones like Mythic Plus comparatively to single target. So starting off with oh dear, I don't know, the Havoc Cloak from Legion. It was buffed from 15% to 25%. Now, this effect does indeed increase your damage single target. I don't have it on, but if I did, I'd launch a bolt and it would show X amount. I'd Havoc and launch another bolt and it would show a 25% damage increase single target. So there is a bit of merit to that. Now, I will say, even with that being the case, like, the damage increase is fine, but I just think comparing it to, like, Cinders of Azakir, which is just really strong for Destro, both talent-wise and just what it does as a whole, it's not really in the same playing field or ballpark. Cinders of Azakir is very strong for destruction. So it gives Conflict Rate 1 more charge, which gives you 3 charges, and reduces the cooldown by 3 seconds. Now, Conflict Rate's baseline cooldown is reduced by haste anyways. I'm looking at 12-ish seconds right here. If I put this thing on, it will go to 3 charges and 9 seconds. So the thing here with Cinders is that, first of all, Conflict Rate gives you more backdraft charges. And if you're talented into Flashover, well, okay, you get even more charges of backdraft. At the same time, Flashover also increases Conflict Rate's damage by 25%. So you're looking at a third Conflict Rate, which having like more damage, more backdraft charges. It's just solid. And especially early on, when classes feel slower, you're not rocking as much haste. I mean, it reduces Incinerate and Chaos Bolt cast time. It just feels better. Now, the bigger interaction that I want to get to here is Roaring Blaze. Conflict Rate applies the Roaring Blaze debuff. So if I conflict here, you can see it's 8 seconds. So there's 2 ways you can do this. Having 3 Conflict Rate charges obviously leads to a pretty high uptime on Roaring Blaze. One way of working, maintaining the buff is you can Conflict Rate every time it's about to drop, similar to how Cascading Calamity was in BFA. Now, we have 2 charges here. You can see we've been able to maintain a pretty high uptime. We're not even rocking the CD reduction. We're maintaining a pretty high uptime on Roaring Blaze in the first place. At a certain point without it, you're going to get a bit of downtime. 6 seconds and 3. But if you clip every Conflict Rate, you're getting the Flashover damage increase, but you're getting the damage increase to the previous Conflict Rate with the Roaring Blaze clip. You know what I'm saying? It just carries over because it increases Conflict Rate's damage as well. So with having Cinders, higher Roaring Blaze uptime, more Conflict Rate damage, allows you to clip Roaring Blaze, and seeing as how Roaring Blaze effects Immolate, Incinerate, Conflict Rate, Channel Demon Fire, just so many things, this is the go-to legendary I feel you're going to want to look at for Destro when it comes to single target, and quite possibly like 2-ish target fights. There's a handful of them in Nathria, but for the most part, I feel like the best fight for this, outside of single target, if you're playing Destro for whatever reason, is probably Huntsman Altimore. You're going to get an ad or 2 ads at spawn, depending on the phase you're looking at, and having that Roaring Blaze buff being cleaved, extra Conflict Rates, more spells in your Havoc window, more hasted cast in a sense, with the Havoc duration extension in Shadowlands, it's just really solid. I think this is probably going to be our best single target one. I don't think it's very close right now. Moving on, though, Embers of the Diabolic Raiment. Incinerate now generates 100% additional Soul Shard fragments. It's fine. It works with Fire and Brimstone, but the thing is, Fire and Brimstone is not really the choice anyways. It was okay with Nephro Lord when it was our Covenant, but it's not anymore. They destroyed Nephro Lord. It's complete garbage, everything now. Well, not complete garbage. It's not as good as it was before. Mainly being Fire and Brimstone and being a little excessive here. But the shard generation, Destro doesn't really feel lacking shard gen wise. So yeah, more shards, more chaos bolts, everything else, but it's just not as strong, I feel, comparatively to Cinders or Wilfred's, which we'll get to in a minute here. The final one is Madness of Azakir. Chaos Bolt damage increase and reduces the cast time of Chaos Bolt by 20 for 3 seconds. Now, Chaos Bolt hits like a wet noodle anyways for now. Destro is undertuned, I feel. Chaos Bolt does not hit very hard in the first place. So while this does increase that, it's like, okay, it's making a wet noodle a little less soggy. It's still a wet noodle. I don't think it's exceptionally strong right now. And once again, if you're playing single targets, I mean, Roaring Blaze, it doesn't really work because it doesn't affect Chaos Bolt. It's just a bit of I don't want to say anti-synergy. It's still strong. I don't think it beats Cinders. Moving on to the generic ones, though. So the big thing here is Wilfred's Sigil. Now, Wilfred drops from the Mana Storms in the other side, the dungeon, as far as we know. It might have been changed because locations have been removed here, but every shard you spend reduces the cooldown of Summon Infernal by 1.5 seconds. Now, there are 2 builds of Destro that you're looking at playing, probably at this point. If you're going single target, you're probably more or less looking at something like this. If you're going like AoE, whether it's Mythic Plus or a couple fights in Nathria, you're probably looking at something like this, give or take a bit. Wilfrid's is exceptionally strong with Reign of Chaos because, well, Reign of Chaos gives you a 30-second window with an insane amount of shard generation, depending what you're doing. You can drop your Infernal and just start spamming Rain of Fire, some more Infernals, more shard gen, and I'm not even doing anything here. You can see the shards just flowing in. And we just cast more Rain of Fires, Inferno, periodic shard refunds. So every single shard you spend reduces the cooldown of your Infernal with its legendary on. More Infernals, more Rain of Fire windows, more Rain of Chaos. It's just really, really strong. Super, super synergistic. And the fact that Rain of Fire dumps 3 shards quickly, you can proc more Infernals, well, it's just really, really strong. Now, this legendary was nerfed from 2 seconds to 1.5. I still think it's strong. When you're looking at Nathria, which I'll have a video coming out on this probably in a week or so, I think there are a handful of fights where Destro is probably a better choice. We're testing, I think, 2 of them tomorrow, actually. I guess 1. But Huntsman Baltimore is 1. Sun King Salvation is 2. And Stone Legion Generals is 3. The thing with this is, like, Stone Legion and Sun Kings, even though they're raid fights, they are huge, heavy AoE fights with an insane amount of adds present at times where you want that big damage profile with your Infernal, with Reign of Chaos, with Inferno, just cranking this large AoE damage out. And once again, multiple targets, multiple immolates rolling, Havoc, shorter, Infernal. So the cool thing here, which we'll talk about Aff and Demo in a little bit, is that Wilfrid's is also really, it's the best generic one, I feel, probably across the board. Yeah, Relic gives you a similar power level, I guess, as every spec. It gives 15% for Demonology, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's fine. Wilfrid's, though, is very strong for Destro. It gives you about a minute Tyrant for Demo, and it's okay for Affliction. So if you're concerned with, like, I want to get a good legendary off the bat, I don't want to craft like a rank 1, I want to make a rank 3, or just whatever. I want to have a good one across the board. Well, then Wilfrid's is probably your best bet, being real, for Destro, Demo, and Aff, if you're looking across the board. It's not as strong for Aff because Dark Lair sort of sucks right now, but what can you do? Looking at them as a whole, though, like, best to worst, I feel, looking at just the Destro-based ones. For rating in Nathria single target, I think it's, I guess, taking all that into account. If you're playing single target Destro or, like, Havoc-based Destro, it's not a huge Rain of Chaos, Rain of Fire, Soul Conduit fight. You're looking at Cinders. Whether you're playing Roaring Blaze or not, it just makes the spec feel so much better. Single targets, even in Havoc-based fights, it's just really strong. Even on Havoc-based fights, this is okay, but it only affects the times when you have Havoc versus this being a permanent increase across the board. You're going to be in and out of Havoc windows. Ads might not be there the whole time. This is active 24/7 and also gives you more value in your Havoc windows. Ember is just a bit subpar. It doesn't really feel like a legendary, you know? It sort of feels like a tier bonus in a sense. And Madness, once again, it sort of feels like a tier bonus as well. It doesn't feel as powerful legendary-wise. This feels like a legendary. I think it's their best choice single target, and quite possibly on a couple fights in Nathria. If you're looking at Reign of Chaos-based scenarios like Mythic Plus or Sun King Salvation or potentially Stone Legion Generals, more heavy AoE-based ones, Wilfrid's is going to be your play here. Getting you more Infernals with more Reign of Chaos, more Inferno windows, even after the Reign of Chaos nerf, after the Wilfrid's nerf, is still really, really strong. So, number 1, like for Destro-based ones, I just put Cinders, probably followed by Madness, I guess, Embers, and oh dear. But if you're looking at, like, the best for, I guess, like, it depends what build you're playing. Cinders, single target, or, like, 2-target cleave base without, like, Reign of Chaos windows, you can't go wrong with. If you're looking at Mythic Plus, certainly, or Reign of Chaos-based fights, you rock Wilfrid's. Destro has some pretty strong legendary effects, but I think these two are the front runners by a pretty long shot at this point. So when it comes to Affliction, there are a handful of legendaries that I think are going to end up seeing play in a decent bit of scenarios. The first one here is Perpetual Agony of Az-Akir. Now, there used to be location drop rates on these on beta. They are gone now again. I don't know why. I'm pretty sure this comes from Torghast. I don't know exactly where in Torghast, but the only one that I guess there are 2. There are 2 legendaries that come from the rate. One being Malefic Wrath, and the other one being Relic of Demonic Synergy. And this one works for every spec pretty much. It's whenever your pet, I guess, procs the ability, it gives you a 10% increase to your damage, and vice versa. If you proc it, your pet gets a 10% damage increase. It's not bad. I guess we can just start here. It's fine for the most part. I mean, if you get the right proc at the right time, when you're dumping your Raptures and your Dark Lair cooldown or whatever for that extended dot damage, it's relevant. The damage will be fine. It's more of a set it and forget it kind of legendary, but depending what you're doing, this could be solid. Looking at like Mythic Plus or a handful of fights, it really just depends on where it sims, single target wise, or I guess AoE wise, when you get the right procs, and really just what you're doing as a whole. It's a solid all-around legendary, but I think for most scenarios, you probably have better options. So as mentioned, Malefic Wrath is the one that drops from Castle Nathria. This drops from Sire to Nathrius. Now, I'm not certain if we are 100% sure on if it's guaranteed or not. When Temerity went in my guild and cleared out normal, technically we didn't kill Sire. However, we killed other bosses that had legendaries on them, and, well, we didn't get... They weren't guaranteed at that point. With that being said, you cannot craft this legendary until you kill Sire Nathrius, and the earliest you can is, well, 3 weeks into the expansion when the raid opens. 2 or 3, depending how you look at it, when Heroic opens. So, I feel that Malefic Wrath at this current point in time is probably our strongest single target option. You can't deny the damage of Drain Soul and Execute. You just can't. And when you factor in Malefic Wrath and maintaining a pretty high uptime on this, maybe playing talents like Soul Conduit, and I mean, hey, if they buff Necrolord again, great. If not, even without that, it's still pretty strong. It brings a solid single target damage increase, and when you get an Execute, which is a relevant portion of the fight, especially on Sire Nathrius himself, actually, it gains even more value. Perpetual Agony of Azakir. Agony deals, I guess, a 20% chance to generate a Soul Shard. So, what this says to me... I mean, this is good everywhere, right? Because Agony is your only shard builder. You put it on pretty much everything you're going to attack. So, in Mythic Plus, this is a solid option as long as you're not overcapping on shards tremendously. Single target fights, it's fine. AoE, it's fine. It's another, like, generic, good, all-around legendary. Is it, like, incredibly strong? Not necessarily. Does it have a lot of synergy with everything else? I mean, not necessarily, sort of, because shard generation is what Affliction's about, but it's a solid option. You can acquire this as long as you can get it from Torghast early on. You can acquire this before the raid opens, as long as everything goes according to plan there. I still don't think we know how we acquire this completely from Torghast. Regardless, there's that. Sacrilash's Dark Strike. So this is the Legion legendary Corruption Slow effect. Now, it was nerfed from 60% to 50% slow-wise, but it still has the baseline 15% damage amp on it. Now, I will say, Corruption was changed in Shadowlands to deal initial damage to a target. It deals 321 here when you apply it. This does not affect that damage. This affects the dot damage of the ticking damage of Corruption. Not a big deal. That affects it both here and when you pop Seed of Corruption. Regardless, this is not bad. There might be a handful of fights in Nathria where this maybe sees some play, but for the most part, I think this is more or less going to be just a Mythic Plus legendary at a certain point. I think early on, it's probably not going to see a tremendous amount of play, mainly being because you're crafting more important legendaries. But later on, down the line, when, I guess, more, I don't want to say degenerate, but more, I guess, different Mythic Plus strategies emerge, and maybe we scale a little better or get a buff there, because we're not very good in Plus right now, this could very well be a thing. Now, like I said, the Corruption damage is there. Affliction is still pretty solid in Nathria, I feel. There are a handful of council-based fights, like Dance Boss, whatever it's called. We're testing it for a 10th time tomorrow. Council of Blood. But the thing with this fight is that, like, Absolute Corruption might seem pretty solid here, but the thing is, the boss heals back to full whenever one dies. The other two heal back to full. And there are some fights, maybe looking at like Sun King Salvation or Stone Legion Generals, where, yeah, you could see AC in the Corruption Legendary being decent, but honestly, I feel personally these are better Destro fights. I'm not saying it's bad, but even when it comes to those fights, looking at a legendary like Corruption Slow, comparatively to Agony of Azakir, it's just good everywhere. So it's a bit narrow, but when it's strong, it's very strong. The last one, I guess there's two here, but the last, like, app-based one that I want to talk about is Wrath of Consumption. So this was changed recently to targets that die with your Agony or Corruption applied to them. Previously, it was just Agony. So having Corruption added to this effect makes it a lot better in settings, because you can cast Seed of Corruption, pop it on the mobs, and then get the 25% bonus damage to your dots. Yes, I know dots don't deal damage. I've heard it 10,000 times. I agree. I'm just saying this is the effect. It was changed. It's better than it was before. There are some fights in Nathria, once again, where this could be pretty good. Mainly looking at like Stone Legion and Sun Kings. There's a lot of ads dying on these fights. A lot of them. But once again, being real, they're probably better Destro fights, I feel, at this point. And even if they're not, and you're playing Aff, Agony or Wrath are probably a bit better, to some extent, maybe even Demonic Synergy. The last one here is Wilfred's. It's Wilfred's. It was buffed from 1 second to 2 seconds for summon Dark Lair's cooldown. If there's some weird, like, niche 1 minute or minute and a half Dark Lair build that emerges, okay, it's fine. It's better for Destro and better for Demo. We'll get to that in a little bit. The cool thing here with Wilfred's, though, and the same with Demonic Synergy, is that it's universal. It works across every spec, and it's probably one of the bigger contenders for Destro and Demo. So if you're not crazy concerned about crafting the best one up front and more so looking at one that you can play in every spec and gain a decent bit of value, Wilfred's probably where I'd start. However, ordering legendaries, I feel personally at this point, like from best to worst, or more so what I'm looking at for Affliction, I'm going to put like overall utility, Perpetual Agony up as number 1, but Malefic Wrath is close in power level. I just think like in plus, Wrath loses some damage, it's some utility, some I guess, viability, however you want to word it. It's still solid. You're still rapturing in plus. But Agony is just good across the board. Malefic Wrath is certainly second, I feel, followed by like Sacrilege, Wrath Consumption. When you go outside the actual like AF-based ones, Wilfred's not bad once again. Synergy's okay. It's not terrible. But I think there are better choices here when looking at like Plus or Castle Nathria and just looking at the AF ones really just as a whole. So if we're looking at Demonology, once again, pointing out first off here, Balespider's Burning Core drops in Castle Nathria. This drops off of Artificer Zyronic, which I think is like the 4th boss in there or so. You know, I actually just realized that this is... Okay, spoilers ahead. Let me just move because it's annoying. Spoilers ahead. This is probably like one of our best single target legendaries. It drops in Nathria. Destro? Single target one drops in Nathria. Affliction? Single target drops in Nathria. What's going on here? And the one generic one drops in Nathria too. What a weird... it's just weird. Anyways, getting into Demo. So, there have been a handful of changes to legendaries for Demonology more so recently than others. Now, starting off, we'll go with the generic ones first here. Relic of Demonic Synergy. I'm going to fly away. That guy's really annoying with the Shadow Bolt cast. Relic of Demonic Synergy. This is 15% for Demonology, comparatively to 10% for Destro and Aff. Now, it's arguably the strongest for Demo's pet in a sense too, because your Felguard is not just like an imp that casts firebolts. I mean, you have talents tied into it. You have demonic strength. You have soul strike if you're taking it. I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure that it has a really high uptime. Now, it's supposed to be 3 RPPM. However, the uptime is higher than that, it feels like. It might be 3 RPPM for you and 3 for your pet. Now, obviously, you trade off a bit here, or sometimes you'll have a higher uptime than your pet, and vice versa. The thing is, you as a player, this does not affect your imps, like your wild imps from Hand of Gul'dan. This does not affect Called Dreadstalkers. It does not affect, you know, bombers damage or whatever. So, you as a player for Demonology, you don't deal a whole lot of damage. It's more or less your pets. So, this is most beneficial for your Felguard comparatively to your imp or Fel Hunter. But you as a player, you're not dealing anywhere near you as much as you are, say, as Affliction or Destruction. So, it's sort of a break even here, but if you get the right proc with this and say you're like Fel Commando Conduit, which is a permanent damage increase to your Tyrant, or to your Felguard, I'm sorry, the damage it deals is impressive with Demonic Strength and Fellstorm and just the basic blind damage it deals in the first place. So that's one to keep an eye on in Mythic Plus, and maybe depending on single target where things end up being, potentially. It's strong. The other generic one here, Wilfred's. This is solid for Demo. It gives you like a minute 7-ish Tyrant as long as you're in combat most of the time. The big difference here, there's been a lot of comparisons made to this, to VOP Minor that we have in BFA. The thing is, VOP Minor gives you your minute Tyrant regardless of you being in combat or not. This effect requires you to be in combat, spending shards, Hand of Gul'dan, Dreadstalkers, Bombers, whatever you're doing. So it's not, okay, if I Tyrant right on pole, which is not what going to happen, but for example, I'm not going to have my Tyrant exactly a minute, 8 seconds later. It could be a minute 8 if you're in combat the whole time. It could be a baseline minute 30, which is what your Tyrant is. So this is solid. It helps, but it sort of depends on what setting you're in. So getting into the Demonology ones, number 1, Implosive Potential. So this used to be just an AoE buff. There was never the 1% haste for 8 seconds when you imploded single target wise. This was changed recently. And while 1% might not seem like a whole lot, the thing is, it's better than nothing. The 5% haste amp has been the same across the board, and the cool thing with demonic consumption and the changes is that your tyrant doesn't consume your imps anymore, so it'll extend them. So it gives you implosions of like 12, 15-ish imps. If you're playing certain effects, it might even give you more. You can get a lot of haste out of this thing. I think the biggest one I've had was like 18 imps. It was like, I don't know, I was over 100% haste in the first stage of Shadowlands. Now, obviously, that was in plus, and during your tyrant, it had good procs and things, but it's not bad in AoE when you're hitting 3 or more targets. The cool thing is, single target wise, it's not dead now either. That was my biggest complaint with this legendary. Moving on to Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling. This is an increase to your called Dreadstalker's damage. Now, you are casting your Dreadstalkers on cooldown for the most part. There's a build playing this, playing a handful of conduits, like playing, where are these things at here? Playing the Carnivorous Stalkers one that gives your Dreadstalkers a chance to Dreadbite again. If you're playing from the shadows, if you're playing Dreadbite, it gives the extra, the AoE Dreadbite with Dreadlash, and it gives you an AoE from the shadows application. Now, that build is there. It's fine. It's not bad. I have been a bit surprised with it damage-wise in Mythic Plus due to its consistency, because you're casting your dogs every 20-ish seconds, whether you have calling procs or not. And if you're heading into a large trash pack, having your dogs on, off cooldown, going dogs, having imps from the last pack, FTS application from your dogs, AoEing with Dreadlash, and then Implosion, the damage is actually surprisingly good. However, it sort of depends on how many Hand of Gul'dans you cast beforehand, because that affects the baseline dogs increase. So it's worth keeping in mind. It's not bad. It's just better and more of a niche kind of build of Demonology. Moving on to Force of the Horn Nightmare. This is similar to the other generic ones you've seen across other specs. This is never going to be like bad. This is sort of comparable to like Agony Shard Generation Legendary. It's always, you cast Hand of Gul'dan as a part of your core rotation. You're always casting Incinerate as Destro for more Shard Gen, so it's like that. It's always fine. You're casting Hand in Mythic Plus, you're casting it in Single Target, in Nathria, everywhere you go, you're casting Hand of Gul'dan. So giving it a chance to spawn more imps or get cast a second hand for free, it's fine. Now, this is based off how many shards you put into your hand. If you, for whatever reason, put 2 shards into your hand and it procs, you're going to get 2 imps from the proc. If you put 1, you're getting 1. Normally, you always cast 3 shard hands, but just saying, that is how it works. The impact damage does come with it. At this current point in time, there is no visual for it, but it's just fine. It's not amazing. It's fine, though. When you're playing Demonic Consumption, this does give Demo a bit of a higher ceiling, I suppose, if you get the right procs in your Tyrant setup. But that's RNG, and let's be honest, who likes RNG? Not me. So, Balespider's Burning Core being the last one. Once again, this drops in Castle Nathria off of Artificer Zyronic. Now, this was changed recently. It was a 25% damage increase, stacking to 4 times for a 100% damage amp, but there is no duration on it. Meaning, if you cast your Demon Bolt at 4 stacks, you'd get a big damage increase, but it would consume the 4 stacks of Balespider's Burning Core. This is now a maintenance buff. Essentially, you can maintain Balespider's Burning Core pretty much the entire time, which might not seem like a big increase. I have it here somewhere. It might not seem like a big increase, but it actually is, whether it's like single target or Mythic Plus. Now, I will say, I think it's a lot better single target than it is Mythic Plus. It's in here somewhere. I'm not sure. But there's builds you can play, whether you're a Necrolord or not, that look a lot more to like just amplifying Demon Bolt's damage. You have, like, from the shadows, you have Power Siphon, which gives you 2 instant cast Demon Bolts, 2 Demonic Core procs, and also increases their damage. If you're playing the Carnivorous Stalker's Conduit, the one that gives you a chance for your dogs to melee again, or I guess proc Dreadbite again, that'll give you a chance to reapply from the shadows, which further increases Demon Bolt's damage. And if for whatever reason you're a Necrolord, which at this point, if you're playing, looking for the best overall covenant, you're not going to be, Estimating Bolt gives you a big increase to Demon Bolt damage as well. And I guess Sack Soul's the thing too, but let's be honest, this is incredibly undertuned. So it's not bad. I feel at this point, if you're looking at Demonology, legendary-wise, our best single target one is probably going to be Balespider's Burning Core. It could be Synergy. It's more of a sim thing, because Synergy's not bad, like I said, with your Felguard and other amps that it has. I just think Balespider's with the Demon Bolt build is probably your best bet, but I wait on sims. If you're looking at like a generic one for Demonology, being good in plus, being good in rating, you go towards Forces of the Horn Nightmare. And if you're looking for one, just like generic one across the board, you probably look at Wilfrid's Sigil, because it's good for Destro. It's Good for Demo, and it's okay for AF. There might be some weird, like I said, minute and a half-ish Dark Lair builds emerging. And if that is the case, then Wilfred's will probably be your play for generic legendaries. So I don't think Demo's in a bad spot. Similar to how like AF is, there's a lot of legendary effects that are pretty good in certain settings. This is good in plus. This is good with a dogs build. This is good across the board. And this is solid in single target. 15 seconds is a long time. This is a pretty easy buff to maintain. Even when you're casting like multiple demon bolts with multiple core procs, you're probably weaving in a shadow bolt here and there. And even if you don't have to, one bolt every 15 seconds is not that big of a deal. The 32% damage amp you get, solid. And if you look at your damage breakdown playing this build, bolt almost rivals demonic consumption. Demon fire damage. It's pretty strong. So after we've covered all three specs here, now that we have, let's talk a bit about what I plan on doing legendary-wise heading into Shadowlands and Castle Nathria. So once again, I really want to say, and I want to emphasize here, that this is not an end-all be-all BIS list or whatever. This is quite literally what I think about legendary effects through testing all of alpha, all of beta, looking at initial sims and things, and really just overall my plan, what I plan on doing. Don't take this as gospel, as word for word, but if you want to keep it in mind, that's probably a decent place to start. So, like I said, with the changes to Soul Ash and not being able to craft as many, I guess, rank 1 legendaries before the raid opens, my current plan right now is, okay, the expansion drops November 23rd. Raid opens here, essentially 2 weeks later. So you have 12, 2,400, a total of potentially up to 3,600 if you do Torghast before you go into Heroic. My plan at this point, however, being real, is not to craft a single legendary until I absolutely have to, which is probably going to be Mythic Nathria. Maybe Heroic, depending on what we're doing, but with tuning still going on, and personally, I feel this raid, at this point in time, with Warlock being the way it is, you're probably looking at playing mostly AF in the raid with a bit of Destro. Demonology could surprise a few people with some builds and tuning, but, well, I'm not really... I think it's probably just going to be the case. I don't think the content you're doing early on, whether it's Mythic Zeros or whatever, like, I guess, capped version Mythic Plus you're doing, is really going to require legendary effects. Now, this is going to be on a case-by-case basis, but the reason I'm doing this is because as much as I don't want to see... I mean, Blizzard is probably going to be doing tuning after the expansion goes live. They always do every raid tier. Now, no one knows if this is going to be the Covenants, Soulbinds, Conduits, Classes, Legendaries. Nobody really knows if they're going to at all. Chances are high they will, but I don't want to craft, for example, say, Triple Conflag, or say, Wilfred's, for example, for Destro or Demo, and then have it nerfed into the ground for the spec that I was looking to play on a certain boss before we even got to that boss. There's no, in my opinion, there's no real point in crafting them early on if you don't need them. Yeah, it'll be cool to play with them early on, play with your friends, but, or your group, whatever, and have your big, cool, flashy effects, but it's also going to feel pretty bad sitting on the bench, or just not really having what you need for a boss fight, because you crafted it early for running Mythic Zeros to have a good time. Now, I understand this is obviously just my opinion, and not, you know, probably the minorities. It's not what everybody's going to do. Probably should do. If you don't care a whole lot about, like, Nathria, the raid opening, Heroic or Mythic or whatever, and you're going to prog at a much slower rate, make what you want early on. You're not really punished by making lower ranks early, having multiple effects, and upgrading them later, and just going from there. Now, I'll have a video coming out on each boss and what, like, build and legendary I probably think is best for them in the next week or so, I guess, leading up to launch. But I just don't really see a point or a reason in crafting them early on with tuning going on. I don't think Lock's bad in Nathria. I think we need help in Mythic Plus. But we're not bad in Nathria. But then again, I mean, with tuning coming, I just don't think it's worth. I don't think it's worth risking all your Soul Ash, because you're probably going to be spending a little bit of time in Torghast, and it's just not worth to me long term. I'd wait until Heroic or Mythic Nathria, depending what your level of progression is, what your guild's planning on doing. I think that's the safest bet, and probably the best bet looking at how Shadowlands has gone on beta, moving into launch, and Nathria's eventual release. Thanks for watching, dudes. Now, like I said for 10 times already, this is just what I'm doing. So, or at least looking at doing. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is certain. This is just my thoughts on legendaries and everything heading into launch and eventual Nathria release. So keep that in mind. In the end, we could have a tuning patch tomorrow, or in an hour from now, or 2 weeks from now, or never. And things could change. They might not change. So it's important to keep that all in mind. But I've been getting the question, hey, what are you doing legendary-wise? A lot. So, well, I felt it was a good time to answer that. Let me know what you guys think of, I guess, the legendary rankings, my thoughts and things on it in the comment section below. Any questions, feel free to drop them down there as well. I'll be sure to get back to you. Once again, any weak ORS profiles or add-ons you see here are indeed available on my Twitch. If you want to swing by and grab them anytime, ask any questions, feel free to hang out. Boys, we've been making a lot of content lately, just in general, since April, since Shadowlands dropped. We're like 20-ish days away. Things are really amping up on Twitch, on YouTube, just everywhere. I'm super pumped for this. It might seem like it's a lot to do, but I'm going to do my best to cover every single aspect of it here. Destro, demo guides, legendary guides, whatever there is, I'm going to do my best. So if you guys want to see a certain video or hear about a certain topic, drop it below. There's a chance I might not have thought of it. Probably a pretty low chance, but still a chance. So thanks for watching, dudes. If you want to see more WoW content, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. I'll catch you guys all again soon on stream. Thanks again, dudes. Peace.